Okay, I think we'll get started. So this is going to be recorded. So if you want to swing back round to it and listen, you're very welcome to. It will be released by the management school. Um, Thank you for joining us. Welcome from wherever you are joining us. This is a third in the series of talks and very much focused on amazing panel guests that are bringing their insights and their stories, which is absolutely fun. I've experienced massive learnings, massive growth from people sharing their stories, giving their time. So thank you already for the three fantastic guests that we have, they'll introduce themselves very shortly. Conversations that shape careers, how your networks propel forward. So I personally have experienced this exponentially as I've been in the business world. I've not come across anybody that's not willing to give you their time to tell their story, and it's inspiring to hear from others that have experienced that as well, and creating those environments where you can be in the right place at the right time and creating your own look. Um, Careers that shape through people, conversations, relationships, and I'll add in there community as well. It's really important to build your community. I like the word community over networks, but they go hand in hand. Propelling your opportunities forward and also giving that to others as well as you go along your career path. It's really powerful. Obviously, this is storytelling on behalf of the audience, so students, alumni, employers, and the wider stakeholders at the university. So, my name's Stuart. I was actually went to Lancaster University. I am an alumni. It's bizarre to say that I'm here hosting an event like this. It's fantastic and a privilege to do so. I have several business interests. My last two businesses I started purely by accident. I think I should be on the panel, but I have the privilege of interviewing three fantastic people that have got stories similar to mine, shaped by the people you surround yourself with, the conversations you have, and the networks that you then take forwards. So I will pass over to our guests to introduce themselves, and we'll go around the room. So, Catherine, do you want to introduce yourself to the audience? Off you go.
Very happy to. Good morning, everybody. My name's Catherine Beckley. I'm a proud Lancastrian. I'm not quite an alumni of the university yet, but I'm working on it. So I have had a very long career in the voluntary sector mainly, and then went on to start a few businesses. I've a 25-year history working in counselling and psychotherapy, and worked for a long time in voluntary and community sector projects with children and young people, and then kind of graduated very much into the death care and bereavement care industry. Um, so I started my career working for little organisations, as we do, and eventually went on to work for a very large charity as their UK Director of Services. And then came out of that and found myself in the Lake District, which was a bit of a culture shock, bringing up four children on a farm, which was not really part of my life plan, to be honest. At which point I had, a couple of options really, one of which was to start a business. And I did. That was 15 years ago now. And that business is Professional Help, and I'm still the MD there. And we work largely in the funeral sector. And we provide services on behalf of funeral directors, mainly bereavement counselling services. We work for a lot of charities running their bereavement counselling services or hot housing, starting up counselling services. We also provide mental health care in the funeral sector predominantly. And after a while, I kind of got itchy feet, as we do, and set up a new business called Grief Chat, which I've actually sold this year to a charity called Much Loved. And Grief Chat essentially was a kind of call to frustration. I'd spent a long time trying to get people in front of a counsellor at speed. And with the technology that we have now, it became very clear we could easily facilitate that with technology. So Grief Chat connects people, bereaved people, with professional grief counsellors via predominantly web chat, but also through instant messaging, through WhatsApp and so on. So I've now I'm looking after Grief Chat because I've sold it into the charity I'm currently working for. I'm now head of charity for Much Loved, and Much Loved has Grief Chat as part of its portfolio. So in lots of ways, kind of an interesting trajectory, probably looking for the next business in the next few years. But in the meantime, I embarked on my PhD at the in the Health Innovation Campus last year, with the Division of Health Research, looking at how people interact differently between real bereavement counsellors and AI bereavement counsellors, which we've built over the last couple of years. So that's my connection with Lancaster. Although I've had a really fruitful connection actually when I started small businesses like Professional Help, particularly, and with Grief Chat as well. Had a lot of support from the university with the business networks and through the management school, and was invited to become a leader of residents. I guess a couple of years into that particular journey. So,
Fantastic.
lastly, fun fact, was it Stuart you wanted?
Let's throw the fun fact in. Go on.
I'm not sure I have many fun facts. You probably wouldn't know it if you looked at me, I guess, but I'm a massive heavy metal fan, and I went watching Metallica at West Ham the other week.
That is a good fun fact. No pressure on the other two. Fantastic. So much. And I'll just mention, I was going to mention at the end, but I think I always, it always amazes me. I come across some phenomenal people that do phenomenal things that I didn't even know was a thing. And looking at opportunities and gaps, and obviously you'll share your story even more about how that links to the networks and the people you've met along the way. But it's inspiring when you hear the use of technology and also areas that you didn't even they're a thing but you weren't aware of. So this is where the storytelling and having fantastic panel members comes and exponentially grows your awareness of what's going on around you in the UK and globe as well. So thank you so much. Joe, over to yourself.
Good morning, Stuart. Morning, everyone. I'm really happy to be here this morning. I'm Jo Telfer. As you can see by my backdrop on the Teams call, I work in industry. I work in an organisation called Sellafield Limited. I've got a background in organisational psychology, organisational change, organisational behaviours, culture change, all that really sticky and interesting stuff. And my current role at Sellafield is I head up a behavioural insight team. My link with Lancaster, that's one of the reasons I'm so excited when Salma offers me a role here and to do something like this. I'm always happy to support Lancaster. I've got a long history with the university. It's a fantastic place. It's a really special organisation. I did my bachelor's there many years ago. I did my master's there not so many years ago now, and I'm currently coming to the end of my PhD at Lancaster. Hopefully I'm in the last 12 months of that. And that's to do with organisational change and leader identity. And if anyone's got 5 hours free, I'd be really happy to talk to you about my PhD. I think it's the most fascinating thing in the world, but I think that's how it should be, isn't it, with a PhD? Also, I'm a leader in residence and an honorary teaching fellow at Lancaster. So it really is a very special place for me. As was mentioned, we were asked to do a fun fact, which gave me great consternation. And I kind of marched around the house scratching my head thinking, but I'm not very funny. So what would be my fun fact? But I did manage to remember that I have a little bit of funniness about me, I guess. I often take a challenge from friends or family members that they can pick any song from the 1980s and I can sing it with all the words correct. So that's a challenge I'll leave out there. That's my fun fact.
That's impressive, as
Well,
well as being a fun fact as well. That's
we'll
a great
see.
party piece as well, a great party piece. Okay, so thank you so much. I thought that was just your estate behind you that you were working from home. Okay, Martin, over to you. Last but no means least.
Well, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for having me. Like Catherine and Joe, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you. My connection, I'll start with my connection to Lancaster University. My son has just graduated his bachelor studies from Lancaster last week, so I thought now it's time. I can't embarrass him anymore, so maybe it's my time now to grab the mic and get onto the stage. So I'm very happy to give some career advice if I can. I am the co-founder of an agency called Cross Media that I started with a buddy of mine some 26 years ago, a typical two idiots with laptops kind of story. And we grew that into a 500 people business across 3 countries. It's an advertising agency, but we don't do the funny pictures. We consult clients on how to best invest their media or advertising dollars and make the most of them. So think of the Etihad Airways of this world or Tommy Hilfigers, where we do that, who spend millions of dollars each year in advertising, and we help them steer that money into some more effective ways than others. This is an industry dominated by only a handful of global behemoths with tens of thousands of people. And then we are really the oddity. It's a large industry. It's almost $1 trillion worth of media dollars that are spent every year across newspapers, television, and of course, mostly now the platforms, the Googles and the Metas of this world. And we're really the oddity. We only place $1 billion of advertising, which makes us an absolute dwarf in this industry. But we are independent, self-owned, and very, very proud of that. I've lived my life, typical expat life. I've about roughly 10 years in New York, 10 years in Düsseldorf, Germany. I'm a German native, and then 10 years in London, just roughly. And yeah, that's I think that's kind of the overview on me. If you were all going for fun facts in the musical arena, I've recently discovered a baritone called Konstantin Krimmel, and I've officially turned into his fanboy and follow this guy around from Salzburg to now London Wigmore Hall to attend all his concerts.
Amazing. I didn't realize we were going to have a musical theme on the fun facts. That's
It just happened.
well linked together.
Grab the opportunity.
I can feel that you're going to work really well together as a panel now. That's good news. Okay, so let's start with we've got 3 key areas of questions that I'll go through with you and hopefully add value through storytelling to the audience. So we'll talk about what shaped your career, and I'll start off with Joe, really. Looking back, was there a moment that really changed the direction of your career linked to conversations, relationship, an experience that stands out? And that could also be something that took a step back rather than a step forward. But over to yourself, is there something that stands out?
Thank you, Stuart. Absolutely. It was about 8-9 years ago. And I recall it as if it was yesterday. It had a very powerful impact on my trajectory in terms of my career, also my levels of confidence, which I think we can't underestimate the importance of the stories we tell ourselves as well, which I think is a really important issue to talk about as well. So there was a senior leader in my organization who I was doing some work with, just some kind of business as usual conversations I was having with him. There was something that really impressed me about this individual. I liked the way he talked. I liked the language he used. I liked his very obvious levels of integrity, the way he was treating people and treating everybody equally, respectfully. There was just something about him. I clicked with the way he was working and the way he was dealing with people, and he was very senior, so I was learning a lot from him as well. I took a brave pill, as I always say, metaphorically, and I asked him to mentor me, and he said no. And I said, oh gosh, and I was crestfallen. Why wouldn't you mentor me? I think, it'll be really amazing. And he said, I mentor quite a few people already, and to be honest, it's quite hard work. So I went away and I licked my wounds, and I really believed that this would be a good relationship to start and a good network, and we could offer something to each other. I went back to him and I asked again, and I said, this is why I think you would want to say yes to me. I said, when we have our sessions, I'll come to you. I'll be prepared. I'll be very clear what we want to talk about. I'll respect your time. I'll work around your diary. Any actions you give me to do, any progression, any growth, I'll do it, and I'll come back and I'll report. I'll really respect and appreciate it. So he very begrudgingly said yes. And the rest is history. We've gone on to have a really, really positive working relationship. He's opened doors for me, given me opportunities I could never have dreamed of in terms of he thought of me for projects. He thought of me to lead on various new ideas and new innovations. It's been huge. And all of that came from recognizing someone who had really high levels of integrity and who I thought I could really work with well. So
Yeah. Do you know
that's
what
my story, Stuart.
the thing I love about that, and I think it's something that you've not picked up on, is that I find all the time that when you come across a shut door, people typically take that as a shut door. And I say, what different angles have you gone at? What different levels have you done in a very professional, um, not naggy way? And I think you've explained that really well. You're not just banging on the door going, please, 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 please. You've gone back in a professional way, set out, and said it shows that you really valued that and wanted it. And I deal with people quite a lot where they've tried one thing, and because that one thing didn't work, they've just turned around and walked the other way. There's a really professional way of continuing to follow that path. Or, like I said, just go at different angles, or the time just wasn't right then.
Mm,
Maybe in a couple of weeks or a couple of months, the time was right. So I love that story. Thank you so much for sharing that. Um,
thank you.
who've got Catherine? Over to yourself. What have you got a story that stands out?
Probably a few, to be honest. I mean, the things that have really changed the shape of my career have been things like having 4 children, moving to the Lake District. My dream was always to be a charity CEO, and that's what I was well on track to do by the time I was 30. And then things changed very quickly, and I ended up in the Lake District, which is a fantastic place to live and to bring up children. But at that point, what do you do? There aren't that many charities. There certainly aren't any really large charities, which is where I saw myself. So I had to make a choice, and that choice kind of tested whether or not I could be entrepreneurial. And with the support of people that I've met during the sort of previous 15 years, really helped me in lots of ways to figure out what I wanted to do. One of the key conversations I had was with somebody I'd worked with previously, who worked in the funeral industry, who said to me, why are you not doing what you were made to do? You were made to build organisations, to build charities, to run therapy services. Why are you not doing that anymore? Well, I live on a farm in the middle of nowhere. I've got these children. And he said, well, you could still do that from there. Why don't you build a service yourself? And actually, that's what we did. We built a big service for SAFE, who are the Society of Allied and Independent Funeral Directors, which is the biggest membership body of funeral directors in the UK. So we built their counselling service for them. And that really set me off then down the road of building professional help as my first business. And then obviously building Grief Chat and moving forward from there, and find myself full circle in lots of ways, because again, somebody that I'd met during that time, I think back in about 2008, who I'd stayed in touch with, done a couple of projects with over the years, really supported the development of Grief Chat, was our first investor in Grief Chat, and actually eventually he's the trustee of one of the trustees of the charitable trust that I sold Grief Chat to, and now he's my boss, which is a bit random. So yeah, I guess lots of changing points really.
I love that. Again, it just shows the power of people and community and network, because if we just stay in our own lane, and if we were to stay in our own internal dialogue, our psychology is that we talk ourselves out of a lot of things, and we have a lot of negative buttons, don't we? So surrounding yourself and bringing more people on the bus, if you like, on your journey, they can give you that self determination, and you are able to do it, and you can do it. And that story just shows that you open yourself up and talk to others, and they can really help you on that journey. So that's really good. Thank you so much. Martin, over to yourself.
Yeah, I think I'd like to tell you a little bit of a story of how I ended up in the advertising industry. I was a student in Hamburg, Germany, and at the time, to just get into the marketing seminar, to get into the marketing, to become a major there, you had to wait for 4 semesters. I'm a typical boomer, right? And I said, oh my God, I can't wait for 4 semesters until I just get into this course. So I settled for HR development, which was the second thing I kind of enjoyed and liked doing. And then there was at the time, the largest advertising agency in Germany, Lintas, had a raffle, and they said 20 lucky students can just come and have a half day of presentations. It's really weird at the time. They had 1,200 people wanting to sit in that 2 hour, 3 hour presentation. I was just dumb luck that I had one of the 20 seats involved. At the end of that session, the HR director came in and was like, "Oh, by the way, I have an opportunity for an internship for somebody who's really fast and who can bring me their application tomorrow." At the time, you had to print it out, put it in a neat, binder and all that stuff. I paddled my bicycle home and got straight back. So he had my application within 2 hours. And he said, "Oh, that was fast." And I was like, "Yep, that's how we like to do things." Or I understand that you like to do it that way. I got the job, the internship. After these 4 weeks of this internship, I did a presentation that he didn't ask for. And he said, "Look, this department is nice and all, but I have three things that I really think you should change." And of course, what did he say? He said, "Well, if you're so smart, why don't you just do it?" I dropped out of university because I thought this is my one and only chance to make it in the advertising industry. And I got my first job at the largest advertising agency. And then my career took off in that field. And I think what's to learn about that, not as what a cool guy I am, sorry, I don't want to boast, but there's opportunities to change and pivot your career. And I think it's really, really important. If you talk to people with successful careers, if you build a word cloud, pivot is probably the biggest word that shows up. Everybody will tell you about a twist and a turn that they didn't expect. And I would encourage you all in your careers, look for the unexpected and just grab the opportunity.
Yeah, amazing. I put onto that what I say to a lot of people about heightening your self and situational awareness. And I think the word pivot was propelled forwards in that time of the world that we had several years ago, when people had to adapt and be agile, move forward. There's no longer the ability to plan your next 3 to 5 year business strategy. It was like we need to plan and prep now and do in the next couple of hours, if not the next 24 hours. And the ones that thrived and adapted and were capable were the people that did that. They got up and did and acted fast. So fantastic. Brilliant. Thank you so much. I'm going to just take this moment to mention to the audience that we are doing a Q&A at the end. Time is at the essence, and it's quite challenging to get all this into the hour. But if you do have any questions that come into your mind, please pop them in the chat, and I will select one or two, or we can select a couple of people to come off mute and ask the questions, and we will do our best to give as much time as possible. So moving on to the next question, I'm going to go with Catherine to lead on this one. So how people propel forwards. They're very similar but very different. So in that experience of how do networks and relationships propel people forward in real terms, what's it look like in a practical world of like propelling forwards? What's that look like? So Catherine, over to you first.
I think it's a really interesting question. And I think in lots of ways we kid ourselves that we're doing the legwork, that we're propelling ourselves forward, that, you put yourself out there and you get lucky. You don't. You meet people, you make relationships, and that's how you get lucky because they propel you. I've not got probably an original thought in my head that hasn't been gleaned from a conversation with people I've met along the way who've said to me, "Have you thought about this?" or "What about that?" or "This is really annoying. We could do something about it." My first job was born of a conversation with my then sister-in-law about the voluntary sector. I knew nothing about the voluntary sector, and she happened to say, "Oh, there's a little charity starting up, in Bolton where I grew up. You should go and see if they've got any jobs." That was the start of my career. It wasn't even in my thinking that this is where I would go with my career. I was doing a history degree at the time. The start of things really was as a fortuitous conversation about something fairly random with somebody I trusted. And I think that's really how it's worked, particularly in terms of starting small businesses, because anyone who's done that will know you need your friends, your family, and the fools who are going to fund you, because you are essentially betting on something that might work. And you might have a track record of being, a good boss or a good manager or a good employee, but when you start a business, it's completely different, and you are relying on the people who back you. You've got to back yourself, and we talk a lot, and we tell people, you've always got to back yourself. You do, for sure, but it's very helpful to have a network of people who are also going to back you and push you forward. And when your head drops and things are not going well, and that's happened lots of times over the years, people have said, remember why you're doing this, remember why you started it, and give you opportunities constantly.
Yeah, I think that's a really good acknowledgement just at the end there about when you were all telling your first stories. Actually, I was saying about the or thinking, sorry, about the I always say about the twists and turns and the ups and downs of business and life in general as well, and careers. And that's a really good acknowledgement of when it's on the dips as well, because nothing's ever a straight line of positivity and everything just aligns. Wouldn't that be great? And I do say that sometimes. Wouldn't that be great if it just went from A to B? And then I ask groups and I just pause and don't say anything because the initial reaction would be like, oh, that'd be great. Imagine if it just went from A to B. And then you sit there and the internally you get the brain cogs to it and think, oh, actually, no, that'd be really boring. It'd be really boring. Like, where's the learning? The learning happens when there's the dips and the ups and downs. And it's the people around you that keep the momentum going forwards, isn't it? That you rightly said that remind you why you're doing it. And when you had that passionate thought at the start, they remind you how passionate you were at the start, and you sort of reignite that fire. So thank you very much. Fantastic. So Martin, over to yourself. Oh, Martin, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Yeah, you guys made very good points already. Thank you. I would agree with you that, careers are really shaped by one thing and one thing only, and that's the relationships, that you build and that you have. And you can trace any career back to probably, 15 people or something that, made you take a turn or take an opportunity or what have you. And I think it's helpful to think of your network a little bit like a tree. Not every single branch will blossom, but a lot of them will lead to something else, and you don't know what that is. So just stay open, and stay curious, and use all of them as an opportunity to build something next. You never know where it's going to turn out and what it's going to look like. But at the end, you're going to have a lot of different blossoms and leaves and beautiful things that come from that main main relationships. And that might be your family, as you just mentioned, Catherine, or that might be, your friends or your schoolmates or whoever. I think, and one really important thing about your networking and your relationships, I would just encourage you, don't be shy. Just get out of your comfort zone, talk to people. If somebody offers you a chance to talk, pick him up, take him up on it and thank them. Worship your mentors. If you find someone, I think, Joe, you made that point too. If you find somebody, worship them, respect their time, take that serious. That is the most amazing opportunity you will get to propel yourself forward, or to get the luck to be propelled forward.
Yeah, amazing. I'm just going to pick, I love an analogy, and you use the tree analogy, which I really like. I had an experience where I just left the military and I was speaking to somebody that'd been out 7 years, and they were giving me advice about networks, connections, and I was like quite overwhelmed. I was like, wow. But the tree analogy is obviously when's the best time to plant a tree? Like 20, 30 years ago. When's the next best time? Right now? And that was that. It was that you're looking at somebody 7 years ahead of you and thinking, wow, like, and I'm now 8 years out, and I'm probably on the trajectory to be an overnight success. It took me 10 years to be an overnight success. I'm sort of fitting into that, and I can't wait for that to happen. I think it is in the 10th year that one of my businesses will propel forward quite rapidly. And again, it's all those stories that other people and the experiences other people tell that really help you and sort of put things in perspective as well. Because there was also an experience in that relationship that held me back in my networking as well, because they were giving me advice based on where they were and I was where I was, and they didn't really put in perspective about they were there when they were there in the past as well. So what I started to do was based around what they were doing, and it wasn't the right thing to do. So anyway, I waffle on a little bit. So Joe, over to yourself.
So thinking about propelling a career, networking and community, to use your word, Stuart, has been so important, in particular when things aren't going well, and that's been my really big experience. I talked in my first story a few moments ago about how my mentor opened doors for me, and that's when things are going well, but equally, if not more so valuable, to propel your career when things aren't going well, when you didn't get that job that you thought you desperately wanted, when you didn't get to ask to lead on a project that you thought you'd be amazing at. So the support and the wise counsel that you get from a really well chosen set of contacts who you've invested time to have a relationship with. The example I've got, the story I've got is, and almost the moral of the story is, be careful what you wish for. I interviewed for a job. I thought I desperately wanted, I thought I'd be perfect at. I had my heart and soul set on, and I didn't get the job. And I was crestfallen, and it was the end of the world, metaphorically speaking, in my head. I then took some wise counsel from a few very select people in my community. And they recognized things in me that I didn't know about myself. I wasn't self-aware enough to see the things in myself that they saw in me. And they were saying, well, no wonder you didn't get it, Joe, because of X, Y, and Z, because you have a strength here, but, maybe a weakness there. Why did you go for it in the first place? You'd be better off going down, turning left and turning right. And I wasn't self-aware enough to recognize what they were saying. They saw in me things I didn't see in myself. Um, and the other thing, and then I'll pass back to you, Stuart, social capital is something I think is really important in your community. And when you're very discerning in choosing people who are in your tribe or in your community or in your network, you have to invest time to build the social capital. So when you ask them a question like, why didn't I get that job? I thought I would get it. They are able to say to you, but Joe, don't you recognize X in yourself? And I'm willing to accept it from them because we have that social capital.
Yeah, I like that, and it's diversifying that social capital as well, isn't it? Because we all have our own bias and our own vision and lenses, and almost having somebody in your network, and we'll all have this in a social perspective as well. All those people, friends, family, you'll always be friends with some people that are complete opposites. When you look at, if you were to psychologically profile each other, you'd have that one friend that was actually complete opposite, but they say about opposites attract, and you complement each other. So that goes with the network as well. So fantastic. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. So Martin, I'm going to ask you about this. So you personally obviously worked across lots of different markets, environments, cultures, countries. I've had some fantastic conversations from a leadership perspective with people that have been in different cultures and organizations. And when you look back, what actually works when you're in that building relationships piece? Have you got anything that you can bring to light regards to what works when you're building
Yeah.
relationships when there's lots of different sectors, environments, markets?
Yeah, I think it's probably, this is a bit cliche, sorry, but it's really stay curious. I think curiosity is probably the ultimate virtue. It makes you tolerant. It makes you grab opportunity. It makes you smarter. I think I would say, in this world, we're so, everybody, especially, I think younger people, they're very used to the perfect algorithms to optimize their lives and just find that one pinnacle of opportunity. And I think if you are trying to build a career, you have to sort of undo a little bit of that, and go back to, it's, every career is just a chain of unexpected opportunities and sheer dumb luck. And oftentimes, as you know, I like what you just said, Joe, you don't know what you want. And you might just bark up the wrong tree to begin with, and so it's hard to just optimize it. Don't think of it as this one perfect job that you need to get. There's 100 doors, and when sometimes young people, I find they find like, I have to find the one perfect one for me. Is like, no, just take any one to go through, because there's going to be 100 more doors after that one door, and you don't know which turn it takes. And the thing you just need to be, when opportunity strikes and when that dumb luck comes, just be ready. Just be ready and grab the opportunity. That'll be a lot more important than trying to be selective and finding the best one. And when you ask me what I see, what works best for people, especially people who want to come and get to some sort of a leadership position, I think a lot of people, and that's understandable, they want to work on their weaknesses. They want to just iron out whatever they don't do so well. And sometimes they forget that they already have strengths. And my advice would be, just focus on your strengths. Do what you're really good at and get even better at it. Over time in your career, you'll probably work in teams where other people can do the things better than you can in your weakness areas. So to be aware of what you're great at and then become even better at it is probably a better recipe than trying to just even out your kinks and trying to be, Mrs. or Mr. Normal.
Amazing. I love that. And do you know what? That's one of the messages that came out. I hosted an event last night in person, and we had three entrepreneurs that built, and they have multiple businesses. And it was that element that they spoke about they attract people who are very, very good at what they do, and they stay in their lane, and they're extremely good at what they do, and they a different mindset and different behaviors for different roles in business as well. Like these entrepreneurs who had several businesses were really good at strategy. They were really good at the high level stuff, but openly very rubbish at the specific things. So it's you can't add. Well, you can add skill sets. You can. There's some really interesting, and when you listen to all the different people in different roles in business, you're right that they're playing to their strengths, aware of their weaknesses, but playing to their strengths. I think you're right. In the education world, there might be that misconception that you've got to get good at everything. So yeah, that's almost a completely different webinar in itself. We could open up other conversations here. So Jo, over to yourself.
Thank you, Stuart. So when thinking about the question, how do I and how did I build a community or a network or a tribe or whatever word your chosen word is, two things came to mind in particular. The first is be discerning, trust your gut, have that diversity, Stuart, that you mentioned earlier on, but also just really look for integrity. That's been my experience. And the second comment I'd make about how to build and how I have built a community of people who have just added value, immense value to me, and continue to support me and add immense value. We're all very different, yet we're all the same. That I mean, we are all just wanting to be appreciated, even if we're the CEO of the big. So that leads me to really think about the most important thing to my mind about when you build and you invest time in your community, in your network, is to try to give as much as you take. And even when you think you couldn't possibly give this really senior person anything, what can I give them? But they've got such a lot to give me. There's always something. So listen to what's being said, listen to what that person needs and what that person values. And it might be something very small. It might just be a little bit of extra time, and you could help release some time by taking something from them to do and freeing them up. It might be very small, but understand what's important to them and try and give them it back. And that quid pro quo just adds value to both parties, and that's the winning formula, to give as much as you take.
Amazing. Do you know what you just reminded me? I call this the line theory, and I think I've done it myself. I've not copyrighted it or anything. It just came from listening to others and my own experience, and you've spoken to it there. So I say draw yourself a line on a piece of paper and network connect with people that are on the same level as you, your peers, and the same time in the business, whatever that is, and then go above the line. So go and spend time with people that have been there, done it, got the t-shirt. They're either higher up the chain in the business. There's no time like the present where we can listen to podcasts, reach out to somebody, ask a question. So that's above the line, but also spend time below the line, and not in a hierarchical way. But if there's people that are asking questions in your business, if there's an associate pool, what am I trying to, apprentice pool or graduates. So it's a really good, like, where are you spending most of your time? If you're just in one of those areas, open up to all the other two areas as well. So fantastic. So Catherine, over to yourself.
I guess it's quite difficult to follow because there's such a lot of good advice in there. I think in lots of ways, particularly in the digital world that we live in now, actually showing up is still so important, whether that's online or in person. And I found, even living in the Lake District, which made travelling quite difficult, actually showing up at events, making the effort to go and meet people, go and sort of shake people's hands, look them in the eye, have a drink after work, all of the things, real human connections, and listening to people as well, particularly when you're on a mission or you've started a business, you want to tell people about what you're doing. But actually, I've found the best way to create those networks that have been really successful in terms of people buying into what I'm doing or supporting me or even selling them stuff, has been to listen to what they're up to, listen to what their priorities are, what they're interested in. And then, further down the line, when you've got that relationship, obviously you share a little bit about what you're up to, but then you can kind of really build on what you know about people and kind of gear into what they might be interested in. It's a strange world in lots of ways. I spent a lot of time networking, particularly in the funeral industry. And the one thing that I never got very good at was golf. Because actually that's a really big way of networking. There's a lot of unofficial social networking, I'm sure in lots of other industries as well. But this was a very sort of, at the time, sort of 10, 15 years ago, a very male dominated industry. And the guys played golf together, the guys who really kind of got into the really big businesses, they played golf together, they socialized together, they did all that stuff. So that was hard to do that, but there are other opportunities as well. So yeah, the listening, the showing up, they're not expecting to make relationships overnight. This is a long haul. You're gonna take years to make relationships with some people. Sometimes you don't realise you have 2 or 3 touch points over 5 years with somebody, and then you realise actually you feel like you've been working together for a while. You can start a project together. You can really kind of make something of those touch points over a period of time.
Amazing. I'm laughing because obviously I have accidentally started a golf company, which
I did not know that.
it came from relationships, connection, community, and I could tell you a whole story about how that happened, but we haven't got time for that. So, but no, you are right. And again, pushing that, we've actually looked at what does the next 10 years, because traditionally, rightly or wrongly, you said to it that it's a very male-dominated environment, and it is rapidly changing for the positive. And there's loads of ways that we can encourage and help support that through community, and we're obviously turned that community. We've got community, which is like the Facebook and LinkedIn for golf, but very quickly turn that into tech. So using the outdated systems to come into one, which helps community and efficiency and all sorts. So, and the other thing that you mentioned, which I really like, and I think we can all resonate with this, it's been mentioned a few times, but that giving and listening. And I think we probably can all resonate with the fact that I've gone through that experience of like connecting so many other people up and doing so much listening of other people. I think where's it come back to me? Like I've got such a really strong network and black book, and I connect on a regular basis. And I did several years ago, but like I'm the person in the middle. I'm doing all this great stuff, and you're right. Over time, those connections that we're so in that instant gratification and instant, you've got to have that a year's mindset with networking and connecting rather than it needs to happen right now. And there's loads of experiences, even like the golf community that I've started. It's off the back of our competitors were very, you need to pass business and connect and do stuff right now. And I didn't resonate with that. I didn't like that way of doing it. And I said, our philosophy is you show up and turn up over a long period of time, and we'll fill the room with some amazing people, and you'll naturally, that will just what will happen. So it is a long-term thought and long-term mindset. So fantastic. It is 1:45. It's almost like we planned it. My military timing head is being happy at the minute. So we have 2 fantastic questions. I'll open them up, and we're very well behaved, this panel, so I'll let whoever wants to go first. So really prevalent in the modern world that we now live in with social media. Catherine, you spoke about in person as well. The questions come in here. What are the best platforms to start networking, and what is the way to start reaching out to people? What do you ask them in the beginning? Who wants to go first?
I'm happy to start if you like.
Go on,
I
then,
can
Catherine,
honestly say that with professional help with the funeral industry business really that's based there, LinkedIn was absolutely my salvation because I was based in the kind of the north, and we have lots of funeral directors up here, but most of the big guys are down south. The big membership organisations are down south. LinkedIn was absolutely fantastic because you can showcase to a small degree what you're doing, what you're interested in, but actually directly reaching out to people. You kind of do get bombarded a little bit with all sorts of things that may or may not be relevant these days. But really high quality contacts through LinkedIn were fantastic when I was starting my business, and still are. Most of our sales are relationship sales, people who know what you do, who've seen what you can do, and will connect you with other people. And just to go back to Joe and your point earlier, Stuart, about connecting people and giving back, one of the things I've always tried to do is for every person who's connected me with somebody else, I've tried to do the same for somebody else, spending a lot of time connecting people. But I found LinkedIn to be absolutely phenomenal for that.
Yeah, fantastic. I think I own, well, I say only recently, so 8 years I remember somebody telling me that I should be on LinkedIn, and I was like, not for me really. And I think it took me 6 months to go onto it. And then I realized, I think in that 8 years ago, there was a little bit of a transition of the platform. As far as we know, historically, it was for jobs. It was have you got a CV? What job would you like? Go on there, ask, promote, etc. But I think there's been a real positive, like all the stuff we're talking about now. That's what the platform is for. So yeah, excellent. Who wants to go next? Martin, Joe, anybody?
Sure, I'm happy to, Joe. I hope I'm not cutting you off. I think I would second what you guys say. I think for a lot of people, LinkedIn is kind of a little uncomfortable. They might not feel like, oh, I'm the influencer type. I don't have what it takes to just crank out really fascinating content every day. And I wouldn't worry about that so much. I think my general advice for anybody who starts a career is have an attitude as if you were picking up a competitive sport. It needs to be a habit first and foremost. It needs to be very disciplined. You need to rely on your teammates, your coach, your cheerleaders and everything. But at a certain point, it also depends on just you. When that moment's right, it's at some point it's your performance and nothing else. Nothing will replace ambition. So I think that metaphor takes you pretty far. And I would encourage you in networking, yes, you need to, LinkedIn, I think, is irreplaceable. You need that. And it's also when you start out, you can just document your own journey. So if you hear from somebody who is interesting, just make sure you what is that? You how do you call that? You put their name down. So you say, hey, thank you very much for, Stuart Waddington for hosting this wonderful panel this morning, and Stuart will see that you mentioned him and somebody else will see the same thing because they were on the same panel. So just document what you're doing and make sure you highlight the people that you've met. And if you liked something somebody said, just mention it. That'll take you quite a long way. And especially when you're not totally focused yet on a specific industry or something, then it doesn't, the randomness doesn't matter because you build your network that way. And then I think for the rest of it is Catherine, you said the same thing. You need to be where your industry is, and definitely don't underestimate in real life. Nothing replaces real relationships. And I encourage you, go to the conferences, go to the meetings, and do the uncomfortable. Put your phone back in your pocket and go up to people and speak to them. And the conversation should, at some point, you should ask them, how can I help you do what you do? If you offer people to help, it'll change everything because they expect to be sold to or something, or that you want something. But if you can say, how can I help you? The most amazing things will happen.
Amazing. I think you spoke to, I love the sport analogy because of my background and all sorts of things I get involved with, but it's like any skill. It gets better over time, and it's habits, repetition, and yeah, fantastic mindset as well. So Joe, anything to add on to that?
Yeah, so just very quickly, three things come to mind. In real life is probably the best in an ideal world, and it's not an ideal world, but in real life is probably the best way I found to build a new relationship and add that to your community, because you can look each other in the eye, weigh each other up, and take it from there. I do like LinkedIn. It's been good to me. I've made two really, really good connections and relationships and friendships, I have to say, professional friendships through LinkedIn. But it's always started with, I thought of you. I think this might help you. I think this person might be good for you. So it's always started with that doing something for someone else, and then in turn it moves on. But my third point is snowballing. And the value of snowballing, touching Martin and what you were just talking about there. It's been really powerful throughout my whole career and continues to be when I can say to Stuart, I've just met someone. I think they would be great for you. I think you get on really well. Let me introduce you. Salma, who's on this call, I'm going to embarrass Salma, who's behind this podcast. She is superb at snowballing. She often contacts me and said, I've just had this wonderful conversation with this person. I think you get on so well. I think you could add value to each other. So you can do that for other people, the snowballing, and
Yeah.
it's just value on value on value.
Fantastic. I will definitely, I think all the panel and myself will second that for Salma, definitely giving a little bit of a shout out there. So I'm going to be very, very kind. I'm going to answer that question, but I'm going to ask you the last question to give you a little bit of time to think. Okay, very kind of me. So the last question that came in, are there any models, theories, or quotes that influence your success within networking to shape your career? Okay, so dig deep for that one. I love that. I can tell. I love telling this story as far as LinkedIn, but there's obviously other platforms out there now that you can create. I'm going to say that word that's quite familiar with everybody now, with personal brand. And I think it's misconceived now that you have to show up to become a personal brand. It's personal. It's unique. It's not what everybody else is doing. It's what your personal brand is. And I go back to my networking when I first started. I was handing my business card out and feeling pretty aimless and not much purpose in there. I was literally just handing stuff, like giving leaflets out. And then obviously learned, listened, looked, and somebody last night at one of the event said, really look at the people and the industries that are in the top 1% that are like paving the way for disruption, future, and go and speak to or study those businesses. It really gives you a starter for 10 to, can you connect with somebody or follow and show up with those companies? You don't have to go and work for them, but go and look, and can you jump on a webinar? Can you listen to something they've spoken about on YouTube? Look for those 1%. And then with what I was doing, I'm now, and it surprised me to even say it, obviously I've got the pleasure of hosting this. I now have the privilege of creating my own rooms because I'm the Cheshire chair of the Institute of Directors. So I looked and I'm in the wrong rooms. Like, where are the rooms I want to be in? And I wanted to be in rooms with directors, CEOs, owners, people that have been there, done it, got the t-shirt, and I knocked on the door. And I was like, right, how do I get into this? And you have that imposter syndrome of like, who am I to be here? I've got the habit of sitting there going, I need to really show up now because I need to do my intro and I'm just this person. But you are who you are, and you can bring so much value to the room. So hopefully that's given you a bit of time to think about your, yeah, we'll do this with your closing comments as well, because we've got 7 minutes left. So we'll go around the room, any thoughts on that, and then we'll close up. So should we go, Joe, do you want to go first?
Yeah, happy to go first. So this is about the quote, Stuart.
Yeah, quote, theory, anything you can link to that.
I've got two. One of them is just me, so it maybe doesn't count quite as much, but I do feel very strongly about the give as much as you take. I feel very, very strongly about that because it works, and it's full of respect, and it's full of integrity, and it's the way humans work on a really basic level. So that's my quote, but a quote from somebody who really knows what they're talking about. And this quote speaks to another issue that we touched upon in the hour we've spent together so far, which is about, it's really important to be discerning about who you approach and who you invite into your community, because it's a very precious space, and you'll listen, and you need to be careful who you listen to. So it's that discerning piece. It's a quote from my most favourite philosopher, a chap called Bertrand Russell, who was a British philosopher. I think he died in the 70s, so he's a modern philosopher by philosophy standards. and I hope I do him justice. He said something like, the trouble with the world is that the ignorant are cocksure, but the intelligent are full of doubt. So let's not always run to the people who are loudest in the room, who are cocksure, and let's listen to the quiet people as well, because in my experience, they've been the most valuable, full of integrity. I've got goosebumps talking about this, the most wonderful people in my own community. So listen to the quiet people too.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Martin, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I love that. I have to overcome my goosebumps first. Thank you, Joe, for that. Maybe this is similar, but sometimes people ask me, is like, well, wow, Uncle Martin, how did you do that? From nothing to 500 people. And I tell them, well, look, I'm probably not the laziest, and I don't think I'm the dumbest, but still, 95% is just dumb luck. There is a lot of, it's so easy to imagine how things could have gotten totally, totally wrong. And so yeah, luck is an important thing, but you can be prepared for your luck and make sure when that opportunity strikes, I think I'm repeating myself, then you're ready and you can grab it. And in terms of, I'll maybe we'll start a chain here, Joe. In terms of what kind of people should you be open to, I would say go to the ones who are generous and grateful. If they're generous, they're happy to share. They will give you something, and they have something to give. And if they're grateful, you can be pretty sure that they're not overly arrogant and think that it's all, that they forget about their own luck. So, with that said, good luck to you all. I look forward to
Fantastic.
hearing
Thank you so
back.
much.
You know where to find me, and I'm happy to chat. I mean it.
Yeah, fantastic. I think our diary is going to be quite full if we'll have to follow up on this. Catherine.
Well, I'm going to bring down the tone completely with a bit of pop culture. So, despite my love for heavy metal, I also have a great fondness for Taylor Swift. And Taylor Swift said earlier this year, you should think of your energy as if it's expensive, as if it's a luxury item. Not everyone can afford it. Not everyone has invested in you in order to be able to have the capital for you to care about what they're doing. So in lots of ways, yeah, be discerning. Exactly what Joe said. I think, you go out and you can really run yourself ragged in lots of ways. So it's about choosing carefully where you invest your energy and where you let people take your energy as well. And I think particularly, when you're starting off or when you're starting a new business, you do run yourself entirely ragged. You have to put a huge amount of time and energy and focus into it. But at the same time, be discerning. Realise that not everybody deserves your energy in that respect, and you can give away too much. So protect a little bit for yourself. And then the other one, I guess, to go back to the kind of previous point about showing up from Hamilton, one of my favourite musicals. I want to be in the room where it happens.
Fantastic.
So.
Yes, I love that. And again, I don't think this is a negative finish, but I think that real life that you just spoken to, I've just literally done some calculations in my head that going to LinkedIn as well. It amazes me that the ability to connect and network with people now, that I think I'm up to sort of like 70, 80,000 people. And I've come across 5 people that haven't been good in business, and that's fine. It's part of my learning journey. And I don't focus on that because I focus on the fact of the bigger numbers and the positive experiences. It's not it's not a straight line. We said that earlier on, isn't it? Like, be careful who you speak to, but learn from those experiences as well. So I think we are in danger of being bang on time. So thank you so much for the students, alumni, employers, wider stakeholders, and for joining us yet again for another fantastic panel. Thank you so much, Martin. Thank you so much, Catherine. Thank you so much, Joe. I know there was a few things popping off in the chat, so apologies I've not had a chance to read all the questions or see all the comments, but this is recorded and we will follow up on any questions and link them into future sessions. Thank you so much, and hopefully see you on the next one.